Hello and welcome back to the Exceleration Netcast. In today's episode, it's sort of a two-parter. Here in this first part, we've got a bunch of data about the number of sugar packets people have consumed at my lemonade stand, and it's broken down by quarter. So for each quarter, we've got a different sheet, right? And what we want to do is we want to combine all of these sheets, but when we do it, we want to make sure that we include which quarter each one of these rows is, because if we were to just combine it, they would sort of all get smushed together, but there would be no information about whether an individual row corresponded to Q3, Q2, Q1, anything like that. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this worksheet. And here we are. We're going to go to Power Query. We're going to load our data from a file. It's from an Excel workbook. And it is not last week's episode, or the last episode, but it's the current episode. We're going to load that. Okay, so it's going to ask us, hey, which sheet would you like to load? Well, we don't want to load one sheet. We want to load the entire workbook, and so we're going to go ahead and click Edit. So at this point, what we're actually going to need to do is we're actually going to need to define a function that's going to basically take two arguments. It's going to take not only the table, which it's going to transform and clean up, it's also going to take the table name and then append that name as a column here in the table. It's not going to append it. That means something very specific here in Power Query. It's going to add the name as a column here in each table. So the way I would actually do this in real life, and the way that I actually did it, is basically you load the workbook and then you just sort of navigate and do what you want to do to properly transform a table, so you've got the code to sort of work off of. Then you can manipulate that code and turn it into a function. So I'm going to start by clicking on Table here to do some navigation. Alright, first thing that we pretty much always have to do is promote headers. First row is headers, and actually this is pretty well behaved data, so we don't have to do all that much else. I'm going to go ahead and add a column, just so that I've got it here in my code, and I'm going to do add custom column, and I'm going to call this quarter, and I'm just going to use a text string, temp string, just so we've got the code written for us. Okay. So now when we head over here to View and go to the Advanced Editor, what we'll find is that the code that we need for this is already sort of mostly written for us. It's written here and here. So it's these two rows. That's what we're going to use in our function. So let's go ahead and define our function. We always want to define your functions above the initial step. It makes the program work a lot better. So I'm going to call this FNC for function prep sheet, and it's going to be defined with two arguments. Unlike a lot of times you just have the one argument. Now we've got two. We're going to have our arg data argument, and we're going to have our arg name argument. So here's the data that we're going to pass into the function, and here's the name that we're going to add as a column. Okay, and how are we going to define it? Well, we're going to define it using a let in, because there's multiple steps. So we're going to hit enter. We're going to do let. So define ourselves a little space here. Okay, so the first step, we're going to have promoted headers. So the first thing we're going to do is promote headers. And we're just going to steal our code from down here. So we're going to grab this, Control C, Control V to paste it. Okay, that's good. The only thing is we don't want to promote headers of Q1 sheet. We want to promote the headers of arg data, of the data that we passed in. So it's going to be arg data instead. And the next step, we are going to take this table that we just created and add our string to it, our arg name string to it. So we're going to go ahead and steal our code down here. We're going to steal that right there. Control C, Control V. Okay, so we don't want to apply this to first row's headers. We want to apply it to promoted headers. As in the thing, promoted header, the table we just created right there. All right, so, well, what do we want to call this new column? Well, we'll just call it quarter. That's just fine. Now here, we don't want to use temp string. What we want to use is the string that we pass into the function, so arg name. So this will be Q1, Q2, Q3, whatever. Arg name. Okay, we don't need a comma because that's the last definition there. And we're going to do in. Oh, wait, we have to define the name of this thing. Whoops. So I'm going to call this add period. There we go. In add period. So we've defined a function. That function is going to take two things. It's going to take a data argument and a name argument. The data is going to be the table that we pass into it, i.e. the sheet. We're going to take that, throw it into promote headers, which will promote the headers. We'll take that promoted headers and throw it into an add column function, which is going to add a column called quarter. And for each one, it's going to take the name string that we pass into the function. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and delete a bunch of this extra stuff because we don't really need it anymore. Let's hit delete, remove that comma there, and we're just going to call this source. Okay, and let's see if I've done everything right. I click OK, and oh wait, I'm missing a comma. Where am I missing a comma? Let's see, edit. Oh, I'm missing a comma probably right there. Let's see if that doesn't fix it. There we go, much better. Okay, so we've defined a function which we don't even use, right? So we've got this function that's going to take two arguments. What we're going to end up passing in is here for the data, we're going to pass the table into the function, and we're going to pass this text string name into the function. It's going to promote the headers of the table and then add this string as a column. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see. All right. So let's see. Head back here. Hit comma. I don't know. One more time, so we've got some space. So we're going to let's call this add period. Add period. Call it whatever you want to. So we're going to do a table dot add column. Okay. Well, we're going to add a column to this source table, right? We're going to add a column that's got the new table with the promoted headers and the new column associated with it. So we're going to add this to source. Okay. Well, what do you want to call this new column? Well, we're going to call it prep tables, because these are the tables, except that they've been prepped to be merged together. Okay. All right. Well, that's great. And how do you want to? What's the definition for this new column? Well, we're going to do an each. So for each row, what I want you to do is apply the function prep sheet that we defined. Function prep sheet. That's that guy right there. Okay. Well, there's two arguments for prep sheet. The data that we want to pass into it, well, that's just going to be data. So we'll call this data. And the argument name, or the text string we want to add as a column, and that's just going to be name. Name. Okay. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to close that guy out, and we're going to change this from source to add period, because that's the last step that we want to actually return and deliver. And let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got. Okay, so now we've got, here's where we started, here's our initial table, and we've added this new sheet. So here's all the initial sheets right here, right? The headers aren't promoted, and it doesn't really tell you what period it is, right? But if you head over here to the prep tables, we now have this table, but we've promoted the headers, and we've added the quarter as a string there, okay? So I'm going to head back to the advanced editor. So the next thing we want to do is, now that we've got these prep tables, we want to merge them all together, which is not too difficult. So I'm going to be a bit more verbose than I would normally be. Normally I would do this in a single step, but I'm going to do this in two steps just to make it really clear what's going on. So list of tables, and that's going to be, so we're going to take a list of tables, we're going to extract it from this add period, because we're going to merge them together. So we're going to take this column here and extract it, and when we extract it, it's going to get turned into a list. So we want to go to add period. All right, well, do you want the entire table? No, we don't want the entire table. Oh, do you want something like row 1? No, we don't want row 1. What we want is an entire column. Oh, okay, which column would you like? Well, we want prepped tables. Okay. So now that we've got that, let me just show you again where we're at. List of tables. Hope I spell it right. Click done. Okay, so now we've taken this column and extracted it into a list. Here's all the tables that we want to merge together. Okay, head back to view, advanced editor. All right, now that we've got that, we're going to merge them, which is pretty easy to do. So we're going to call this combined. Okay, so, well, what are we going to combine? Well, we're going to do a table.combine function to combine a list of tables. Okay, well, which list of tables would you like to combine? Well, we're going to combine the list of tables. List of tables. Okay. So now we're going to click Done. Hope we spelled everything right. And there we go. So now we've got our data, and it's all been combined, and we've got this nice new quarter column that tells us which quarter each row corresponds to. So just to do a few more little cleanup things here for the next one, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this index. We're gonna end up not needing it for the next one. If you need it for your data, well, by all means leave it in. Although I should point out that this index is going to be kind of wrong because the number for each quarter, the number 1 is going to appear a bunch of times. So index isn't really meaningful here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it. And also, just because I like to have this information closer to the front of the sheet, or to the left side of the table, because I think it's easier to figure out what's going on, I'm going to move this to the beginning. And okay, so I think we should be done. I'm going to go ahead and head over to home, and I'm going to do close and load. And there we've got our brand new table. All right, well, I hope that was helpful, and I will see you next video.